In the summer of 1977, something strange happened at a small research facility in California. It was late at night, and only a few scientists were still working.
Me.
Among them was Dr. Lena Morano, a brilliant but quiet woman who had spent years listening to the stars. She wasn't a famous scientist, but in her field, people respected her. She worked with the SETI Institute, an organization that searched the skies for signals from intelligent life beyond Earth. Most nights, nothing unusual came through the antennas, just the regular hum of space, like a quiet ocean with no ships. But this night was different. At exactly 2:12 a.m., one of the radio telescopes picked up something odd. It wasn't a normal space sound. It wasn't a planet or a star or a comet. It was a pattern, not just any pattern, it repeated in a way that suggested intelligence. It was too exact, too perfect. It was like someone was knocking from the other side of the galaxy. Lena stared at the computer screen. Her heart started beating faster. She called her team, and within minutes, the lab was filled with scientists trying to make sense of the signal. It was long and complex, not just a few beeps or bursts. It had layers, rhythm, and a structure they had never seen before. They recorded everything and started decoding it. For weeks, they worked in secret. No one outside the lab knew. They didn't want the media or the government to interfere, not. Yet, they believed this could be the most important discovery in human history, a message from an alien civilization. Slowly, piece by piece, they translated parts of the signal. It was not in any known human language, of course, but it had mathematical patterns, prime numbers, golden ratios, universal constants. Then came images, strange symbols, geometric shapes. And finally a message. It said they were the Catalvora, the oldest known species in the galaxy. They claimed to have lived for billions of years, long before humans even existed. Long before Earth cooled from molten rock, they said they had seen stars born and die. They had visited thousands of worlds, helped young civilizations grow. And in all this time, they had recorded everything. Knowledge, technology, history. They were not gods, but they were close, and they were peaceful. At first, Lena and her team were thrilled. This was not just contact. This was a direct message from the wisest species in existence. A species older than human imagination could reach. It sent questions back into space. Basic ones first. Where are you? What do you look like? How do you travel? The Catalvora responded, but not with pictures of themselves. Instead, they showed maps of the stars, diagrams of black holes, and energy patterns no human scientist had ever seen. Galaxies using space folds and gravitational tunnels. Their technology was beyond anything Earth had, but they never bragged. They were gentle in their words, patient with their responses. They seemed like teachers or watchers. Then Lena asked a question that had been bothering her for weeks. Have you ever visited Earth? The reply came quickly. No. She asked again, in more detail. In all your travels, you never stopped by Earth, never studied humans? The answer this time was longer. We avoid your world. Always have. Always will. We watch from far. Away, but we do not approach. The room went quiet when they read this. It didn't make sense. Earth was full of life. Humans had radio waves, cities, culture. Other species would be curious, right? Why avoid Earth? Lena asked why. The reply was short and strange, because something else lives there. That line shook everyone. What did they mean by something else? Another species? Something dangerous? Lena asked again, pressing for more detail. But the Catalvora didn't respond immediately. For 3 days there was silence, and finally a message arrived. You are not alone. Your planet is not empty. We do not interfere with what is sealed. That was the last message they ever received from the Catalvora. After that, the signal stopped completely. Nothing. No replies. As if the line had gone dead. Lena and her team tried for weeks to re-establish contact, sending questions into the stars, hoping for even a single response. But space was silent again. The knocking had stopped. Lena became obsessed. She stayed late in the lab every night, going over the messages again and again. She wrote everything down in journals, filling entire notebooks with thoughts and translations. She looked into ancient texts, global myths, anything that talked about something else living on Earth. Demons, spirits, monsters, shadows under the sea. She wasn't religious, but the idea began to haunt her. What if something really was here? Something humans had forgotten or never understood? Her team grew worried about her. Some thought she was losing her mind. Others quietly agreed with her. Had seen the messages, too. They had read the words, "You do not approach. You are not alone. What is sealed?" The messages weren't vague. They were warnings. In time, the government found out. Someone leaked a report, and within days, black cars showed up at the lab. Hard drives were taken. Notes were copied. Some scientists were told never to speak of it again. Lena didn't fight back. She just packed up her things and left. She went to a cabin in the mountains and kept working in secret. Over the years, she watched the world change. Technology advanced. People looked to the stars with hope. But Lena looked at Earth with fear. She believed something was here. Something old. Not aliens from the sky, but something that was always beneath. Something the galaxy's oldest species was afraid of. Why else would they avoid this planet? Not out of ignorance, but out of caution. Lena tried to tell others. She wrote anonymous. Papers, sent messages to trusted colleagues, even tried contacting foreign space agencies. Some laughed. Some ignored her. A few listened, but said nothing. The world didn't want this story. It wanted hope, wonder, a universe full of friendly aliens, not silence and fear. In her final journal, Lena wrote one chilling line. It was a note to her granddaughter, Anna. She wrote, "They were not warning us about them. They were warning us about ourselves and something deeper than we can imagine." She never explained what that meant. But Anna would spend years trying to understand it. Years chasing shadows, secret files, and forgotten messages. It all started that night in 1977, when a quiet knock came from the stars, and the oldest voice in the galaxy whispered, "We do not go near your world." After the final message from the Cato Vora, everything changed for Dr. Lena Morano. The contact that had once brought so much excitement now left only fear. The last thing they said had stuck in her mind like a splinter. "We do not go near your world. You are not alone there." These words were not from just any alien species. They were from the oldest, most advanced civilization in the galaxy. And if they were afraid of Earth, then something must be very wrong. Lena spent her days going over every piece of the communication. She reviewed each line, each symbol, and every sound from the transmissions they had received. She even hired independent linguists and cryptographers, secretly, without involving her former team. She wanted fresh-eyes people who didn't know where the message came from. Some of them were confused by the language. Some believed it was just complex. Math. But one young linguist, a man named Amir, found something Lena had missed. He noticed a strange pattern hidden inside the digital noise between the words, a smaller, secondary signal. This hidden signal was like a whisper underneath a louder voice. Amir managed to extract parts of it. It was difficult, but what he uncovered sent chills down Lena's spine. The hidden message wasn't a warning. It was a plea. It read, "We cannot help you. It watches the ones who try." That was when Lena realized this wasn't just fear. The Katalvora had tried to help another species before, and something terrible had happened. Now they were staying away. Not just to protect themselves, but maybe to protect others. To Delina. Kept all this secret. She didn't want the government getting involved again. She still remembered the black-suited men who came to the lab. They took the data, confiscated hard drives, and warned the scientists to remain silent. Officially, the entire SETI experiment was shut down and labeled as a technical error. But Lena knew the truth. She knew the Katalvora had made contact. She knew they had warned humanity. And she feared it was already too late. Years passed. Lena never gave up. She kept watching the skies. Every night, she would sit on her cabin roof with a small telescope and a modified radio receiver. She listened to static for hours. Sometimes she would hear bursts of strange sounds patterns. That reminded her of the first signal. But they were faint, broken. It's like something was blocking the message. Or worse, someone in 1985, Lena received a letter. It came in an unmarked envelope with no return address. Inside was a small cassette tape and a typewritten note. It said, "You're not the only one who heard them. They warned us to. We didn't listen." Lena played the cassette in an old tape recorder. The audio was static at first. Then, through the noise, a deep, unnatural voice spoke a sentence. "We do not open the gate. The prisoner must remain." That was all. The rest of the tape was silence. She didn't sleep for days after that, Lena began collecting strange reports from around the world. She read about places where radio signals would suddenly vanish. Areas where animals refused to go, where compasses spun wildly, and where people heard things they couldn't explain. In Siberia, deep in the tundra, a mining team reported finding a black stone covered in symbols. When they brought it to the surface, every electronic device in a 10-mile radius stopped working. The government sealed the site within 48 hours. No further reports came out. In the Amazon, a lost tribe was discovered that worshipped a sleeping god beneath the ground. They warned explorers not to dig too deep. The same year, a team drilling in the Arctic reportedly reached a chamber filled with warm air and strange echoes. They thought it was a cave, but none of the crew returned. Only a single audio recording remained. It had no words, just the sound of something breathing, slowly, deeply. Lena kept all these stories in a box under her bed. She called it the Forbidden File. Every story had something in common, something underground, something old, and something watching. By the 1990s, Lena was old. Her hair had turned white, and her health was failing. But her mind remained sharp. She began writing a memoir, one she never intended to publish. It was just for her granddaughter, Anna. In it, she wrote everything she knew. The transmissions, the warning, the hidden messages, the strange reports. But she also wrote something. Knew something she had kept secret, even from her team. Back in 1977,
Last year,
after the Katal Vora sent their final warning, there was one more transmission. It came exactly 1 hour after the others had stopped. Lena was the only one in the lab when it arrived. She never told anyone. She was afraid. The transmission was not from the Katal Vora. It used a different frequency. It sounded wrong. Harsh, sharp. It didn't speak in symbols or music. It spoke in broken English. Lena had recorded the message and hid it in a sealed box. In her memoir, she wrote the words, "You are not the first. They tried to warn the others. But now, no. One leaves." That message changed everything. Lena believed it wasn't just a warning. It was a threat, not from the Katal Vora, but from whatever was already here, whatever they were talking about. Something ancient, something intelligent, something that could listen and respond. Began to wonder if the thing they spoke of wasn't buried underground, but hiding in plain sight. Maybe it didn't live in one place. Maybe it moved. Maybe it hid inside the signals themselves. Lena began seeing things in static, shapes, eyes. At first, she thought it was her mind playing tricks. But she was too careful, too trained, to dismiss it. She stopped using electronics at night. She covered mirrors. She even disconnected her radio equipment completely. But still, she heard the whispers, not in the air, but in her dreams, she wrote. It knows who listens. It knows who asks too many questions. That's why the Katal Vora stopped talking. That's why they stayed away. Lena died in her sleep in 1998. Her journals and tapes were sealed in a safe. Her granddaughter Anna, only 12 at the time, didn't know anything about the story. Not yet. The world moved on. Space exploration grew. People talked about colonizing Mars, reaching new stars, building faster ships. But none of them knew the truth. None of them knew the warning that had been whispered from the edge of the galaxy. Then, in 2011, something happened. A private space company launched a probe to scan the outer edges of Earth's magnetosphere. The mission was routine. It was meant to study solar flares. But the probe picked up a strange energy signature, one that didn't match any known source. It was coming from deep below the Earth's crust. The signal pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. The data was forwarded to a small lab in Sweden, where a scientist named Dr. Hans Bergstrom recognized something odd. The signal had the same structure as the 1977 HFY transmission. But it wasn't coming from space. It was coming from Earth. Dr. Bergstrom tried to publish his findings. Within days, his lab was shut down. The company behind the probe went silent, not before a small portion of the data was leaked online, just a fragment of the sound. A group of amateur radio experts managed to clean up the noise, and what they heard was horrifying. A deep voice, slow, not human. You dig too close to the gate. Do not wake what sleeps. This matched the final message Lena had received all those years ago. The message that said, no one leaves. Anna, now in her 20s, stumbled across the leak online. The name gate caught her attention. She remembered her grandmother talking about that word. She searched her old things, found the locked box and opened it. Inside were the journals, the tape, the notes, the truth. And that's when she realized the warning wasn't for Earth. It was for the galaxy. Earth was a sealed place, a cage, a prison, not for humans, but for something else. The HFY had watched from afar, afraid to interfere. Not because they didn't care, but because they couldn't risk opening the prison door. Earth wasn't just a planet full of life. It was a planet hiding something. Else something the oldest species in the galaxy feared more than anything. And what? It was still here. In 1996, something strange was discovered in Antarctica. A joint research team, made up of scientists from 5 different countries, had been drilling deep into the ice for climate data. Their goal was to reach ice that had not seen sunlight. In thousands of years, the deeper they went, the older the ice became. They wanted to understand how Earth's climate had changed over tens of thousands of years. But what they found was not just ice. It was something buried far below the frozen surface. Something that was not supposed to be there. At first, the drilling team reported a strange resistance. Their equipment was slowing down in one particular spot, as if it had hit something solid, something not made of ice or rock. The drill sensors picked up strange echoes. Instead of bouncing off the layers of ice normally, the sound was being absorbed. It was like the ground itself was swallowing the signals. That had never happened before. They stopped the drilling and used ground penetrating radar to scan below. The images came back blurry and hard to understand. But one thing was clear. There was a large structure hidden under the ice. It was smooth, metallic, and shaped like a dome. It was not natural. It looked like it had been built. The scientists were confused and excited. Could it be an old military base? A meteor? An alien craft? No one knew. They kept the discovery secret at first. Only a few people at the top of the project knew what they had found. They decided to drill around the edges and try to access the structure carefully, without damaging it. After 2 weeks of careful work, they reached a kind of tunnel long and narrow, leading into the side of the structure. It was made of stone. Not metal, but the walls were too smooth to be natural. When they entered, their equipment began to act strange. The lights flickered. Their radios picked up static. One of the scientists said he could hear whispering in his headset, but when he took it off, the whispering stopped. Inside the structure, its temperature was strangely warm, even though it was surrounded by ice. There was no source of heat that they could find. The air was thick and hard to breathe, even with oxygen tanks. And deep within the chamber, they found the walls covered in strange symbols, carved deep into the stone. The markings were unlike anything they had ever seen before. They were curved, sharp, and written in circular patterns. Some looked like eyes. Others looked like stars falling from the sky. No one could read them. They took photos, collected samples, and sent the data back to their labs. But 2 days later, something happened. One of the scientists, a man named Dr. Emil Kovac, disappeared. His coat and boots were found near the tunnel entrance, but there were no footprints in the snow. No signs of a struggle, no blood. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The team was shaken. They paused the work and contacted their governments. Within 48 hours, a military aircraft arrived. The site was locked down. New people came in men in black uniforms with no names on their jackets. The original research team was told to leave. They were flown out, and their equipment was taken. Some of them tried to speak out later, but they were ignored. People called them conspiracy theorists. Crazy. Delusional. But some photos survived. A few blurry images of the symbols were shared secretly between scientists online. Most people dismissed them as fakes. But one person recognized the markings. Anna Morano. She had been studying her grandmother Lena's notes for years. When she saw the images from Antarctica, her heart nearly stopped. The symbols matched the hidden messages from the Katalvora. Not just similar, they were identical. The same curved lines, the same eye-like shapes, the same patterns that represented a warning. Anna knew this could not be a coincidence. The Katalvora had never visited Earth, so how could their symbols be here, buried beneath the ice? Unless they were not Katalvora symbols at all. Maybe the Katalvora didn't create them. Maybe they only recognized them. Maybe the Katalvora had seen these symbols before, on other worlds. Worlds that were no longer alive. Worlds that had been lost. Anna began to piece the truth together. Earth was not the first planet to hold this prison, as the old alien messages had called it. Perhaps this thing, whatever it was, had been sealed away before, on another world, long ago. And the Katalvora had seen it, studied it, and learned to stay far, far away. Now Earth was its new cage. Anna became obsessed. She wanted to know more about the Antarctica structure. But the government had erased most records. Files were deleted. Names redacted, scientists silenced. Still, she found one man, former technician from the original drilling team. He had retired early, disappeared from the public eye, and lived alone in Canada. Anna flew to meet him. The man was old and sick, but when she showed him the symbols, he turned pale. He said the structure wasn't a machine or a cavit, was a temple, a place of worship, but not for gods, for something older. Something that the builders feared. He remembered the carvings clearly. One of them showed a figure trapped inside. A circle. The circle was covered in chains. Around the outside were smaller beings, kneeling, hands raised. The technician called it the sleeping one. He said that when they first entered the inner chamber, the walls had started to hum. A low vibration, like a voice too deep to hear. It made their bones ache, their minds spin. One man had a nosebleed, another fainted. That night they all had the same dream, a dark room, with a tall, thin figure standing in the center. Its eyes were closed, but they knew it could see them. It whispered one word over and over. Watch. After they left. The dreams continued for weeks. Then came the silence. He never saw the others again. Anna wrote everything down. She started a private file, the old prison. She collected stories from around the world, any place where symbols like these appeared. In Egypt, in South America, in underground caves in Asia, all showed similar carvings, a sealed figure, watching eyes, circles, chains, different cultures, different times. But always the same warning. She found an ancient Sumerian tablet that spoke of the thing beneath the Black Mountain, a carving in the Congo that told of the watcher beneath the ice. And in an old Tibetan scroll, she found the most chilling sentence of all. It sleeps while the world forgets, but it remembers all who look. The message was always the same. It was not dead, just waiting. One day, Anna received a package in the mail. No name, no return address. Inside was a single USB stick. On it was a short video, less than 2 minutes long. It showed the inside of the Antarctic chamber. The video was dark and shaky, but the symbols on the walls were clearly visible. Then the camera turned toward something large at the center of the room. Sealed stone door covered in chains and strange lights. A low sound could be heard. In the background, like something moving behind the wall. Then, the lights flickered in, the video cut out. Anna tried to trace the file's origin, but failed. Whoever sent it did not want to be found. But the message was clear. The chamber was still active, still guarded, still sealed, But for how long? She started to wonder, what if humanity was not keeping it locked in? What if it was letting them think they were in control? What if the prison wasn't made to hold it but to protect us? Anna returned to her grandmother's journals. In one entry, Lena had written something strange, a thought that haunted her. What if it's not buried? That sentence made Anna think. Everyone believed the threat was below ground, in secret chambers, in ancient prisons. But what if the real danger was everywhere? What if it had already escaped? Or worse, what if it had never been sealed at all? Maybe. The Catalvora had misunderstood. Maybe the prison wasn't physical, it was planetary. Earth itself was the cage. Not for humans, but for something else. And we were the unwilling guards. Anna knew that she had to be careful. The more she learned, the more dangerous things became. She noticed her phone behaving strangely. Files disappearing. Messages unreadable. Once she saw a figure watching her from across the street, but when she turned it was gone. She felt cold all the time. She began to hear the hum that the technician spoke of. It came at night, in her walls, in her dreams. She had seen too much, and now it saw her too still. She kept going. She had to know the truth. For her grandmother, for herself, for everyone. Because deep beneath the ice, or maybe deep within reality itself, something old was stirring, and the galaxy's oldest species wasn't afraid of us. They were afraid of it, and that was why they never came near. Not because we were alone, but because we weren't. In the early 2010s, human technology had advanced enough that private space companies began launching their own missions. No longer was space travel only for governments. Rich entrepreneurs were funding rockets, satellites, and even manned missions to the moon and Mars. People believed this was the beginning of a new age of space exploration where humans would spread beyond Earth. But while the world celebrated, strange things began to happen, things that weren't explained. In the news, the first sign came from a company called Ecliptech. They had launched a probe designed to orbit the far side of the moon and scan for minerals and water. The mission was simple and routine. The probe had worked perfectly for weeks. But on its 14th pass behind the moon, something strange happened. It stopped responding. Not just a signal. Lost complete silence. When it finally came back into view, the onboard data was gone, wiped clean. All the video, the scans, even the basic code that controlled its systems erased. The engineers were confused. They checked everything. No hardware damage, no power, failure, no software bug. It was like the probe had gone to sleep for 6 minutes and returned empty. They sent it back around the same path. The next time it passed the far side, it disappeared again. But this time, it never came back. The mission was quietly canceled. No public statement was made. The company moved on to other projects, but inside, the staff was deeply unsettled. One technician swore he had seen something in the data logs before the wipe. Just one frame, a dark shape, tall, thin, almost human, standing against the gray surface of the moon, but it wasn't made of flesh. It looked like a shadow carved out of nothing. He reported it, but his boss told him to keep quiet. Then came the second incident. A larger company, funded by several international investors, sent a crewed mission to test long-term life systems in low lunar orbit. 3 astronauts were on board. The mission lasted nearly 20 days. Everything seemed fine until the 18th day. The crew entered radio silence as they passed behind the moon. That was expected. This time, they didn't return to signal range. The spacecraft vanished from tracking. When ground control tried to reach them, nothing came through. No static, no emergency beacon, just emptiness. Then, after 3 hours, the signal returned, but only for 7 seconds. The audio that came through during that time was terrifying. A single voice. A male astronaut, breathing heavily, whispering, "It's here too." Watching. Then silence. The signal was cut, and the spacecraft was never seen again. Governments claimed it was a malfunction. The mission was declared a failure. Families were given private condolences and told the crew had likely died due to technical problems. But inside the space agency, no one believed that. Systems didn't just come back for 7 seconds and then vanish forever. The engineers studied the signal. One of them, a young woman named Camilla, noticed something strange in the background of the audio. There was a low hum barely above the human hearing range. She ran it through a spectrum analyzer. The frequency was almost identical to the hum recorded from the ancient Antarctic chamber. Camilla brought her discovery to her supervisor. The next day, she was reassigned. Her files were deleted. Her access card no longer worked. She disappeared. From the project, at the same time, strange patterns began appearing in space telescope data. A deep space observatory in Chile noticed that light from a distant star system was being blocked in a way that didn't match any natural object. The shadow was moving slowly, but not in a straight line, twisted as if reacting to something. Astronomers called it an anomaly. A few said it might be a massive alien structure. But within days, the data was removed from public databases. 1. Image leaked online. It showed a dark shape round, yet broken, like a cracked planet. In the center was a symbol, not made of light, but of absence. A hole in the stars. Anna Morano saw the image and immediately recognized it. It was the same as the symbols on the Antarctic wall. She printed it, stared at it for hours. Then she flipped it upside down. The shape changed. It became a gate, a sealed door, floating. In space, a prison that no one dared open, and maybe it had opened. Anna went back to her grandmother's files. She found a note written in the margins of an old page. If it reaches space, nothing can stop it. The warning from the Katalvora echoed in her mind. We do not go near your world. Why? Because something was sealed here. Something terrible, but what if that thing wasn't just here anymore? What if it had started to move? The next disaster came in 2014. A private space station named Horizon Nest was built in orbit to test new life support systems. It was supposed to house a crew of 6 for 3 months. The mission started well. Daily updates were posted online. Videos of astronauts floating, laughing, doing science experiments. Everything looked perfect until day 41. The live feed was interrupted. A glitch, they said. Then it stayed down for 2 hours. When it came back, only one astronaut was visible. Commander Ray Norris. He sat still, eyes wide, floating in the center of the module. His mouth moved, but no sound came through. The feed froze on his face for 20 seconds before cutting out again. When authorities investigated, they found the station empty. No sign of struggle, no blood. Just 6 suits floating in different rooms, neatly zipped up. The computers had been wiped clean. A backup drive was found hidden behind a panel. It contained a single audio file. It had no speech, just the low hum again, the one heard in the Antarctic structure, in the lunar audio, and now here. One scientist listening to the file collapsed during playback. He later said he had seen images in his mind flashes of a black gate of stars bleeding light and of something standing at the edge of the Earth's shadow. Watching, the incident was erased from the public record. Horizon Nest was said to have failed due to a solar flare. No further questions were allowed. Meanwhile, Anna noticed something even more disturbing. The Katalvora signal, the one her grandmother received in 1977, had not just stopped, it had been interrupted. She reanalyzed the last message with new tools. The waveforms at the end were not cut. They were torn like someone had forced the signal to stop. Worse, there was a trace of another signal layered over it. One that didn't match any alien language. It was human. A voice, female, whispering, "No one leaves." This voice had appeared once before. On the final tape Lena had hidden, the one she said wasn't from the Katalvora. Anna matched the wave patterns. It was identical. This meant only one thing. Something was blocking communication from Earth. Something was keeping the galaxy away. Not because Earth was forgotten, but because it was being watched, controlled, a trap Anna found. One more file in her grandmother's notes. A handwritten message. They tried to escape, but it followed them. It doesn't want to leave Earth. It wants Earth to leave. Anna didn't understand this at first. But then, while reading recent news, she found a short article about a satellite. That had gone off course. It was meant to study Jupiter, but instead it was pulled toward deep space. No gravity had caused it. No explanation was given. The last image it sent before losing power showed the stars warped, like light bending around a hole. And in the center of that image, a tall, thin shadow, the same figure that had been seen in the moon footage. The same one from the dreams. From the ancient carvings, it was no longer sleeping. It was moving. Governments denied everything. Missions were canceled. Private companies received new rules. Suddenly, no one was allowed to send probes to the far side of the moon. No ships were allowed to orbit Mars at night. Public feeds were delayed by 24 hours. All space activity was carefully monitored. The official reason? Safety. But Anna knew the truth. The silence in space was not peaceful. It was forced. Something was silencing the galaxy. And Earth was at the center. She wrote her findings into a document titled The Eye Behind the Stars. She sent it to 10 trusted researchers. 3 replied, 2 disappeared. 1 sent her a final message. You're right, it's not just here. It's everywhere now. In the static, in the code, in the silence. The galaxy was watching Earth, but something else was watching the galaxy. And that was why the Catalvora never came, because they were afraid of what would follow. Anna Murano couldn't sleep anymore. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the same sound, a low hum, steady and cold, like a warning buried deep in her bones. She saw flashes of the same shape over and over again, a tall figure standing. Beneath a black sky, surrounded by symbols that spun and twisted, impossible to focus on. She didn't know if these were dreams or visions, but every time she woke up, she felt like something was closer. She spent her days reviewing everything. Her grandmother Lena's journals, the leaked footage from Antarctica, the mysterious files, sent by strangers, the distorted images from failed space missions. The pattern was now too clear. The oldest alien species in the galaxy, the Catalvora, had warned them. Earth was not empty. Something else lived here. One thing that even they were afraid of. But what was it? Anna remembered the final message. Her grandmother had hidden, the one that had chilled her more than anything else. You are not the first. They tried to warn the others, but now no one leaves. That message wasn't just about humans. It was about something bigger, about containment. Earth wasn't a special planet. It wasn't being watched because humans were important. It was being watched because something dangerous was trapped here, or so they thought. What if the truth was worse? What if it wasn't trapped anymore? Anna found an old recording in her grandmother's files, marked with a symbol she didn't recognize at first. It wasn't in any known language, but after days of comparing it to the Antarctic carvings and the space transmission shapes, she realized it was a Silalock, something meant to hold something in. The file was audio only. She listened with headphones. The voice that came through was not human. It was slow, echoing, and barely understandable. But the words were clear. This world is their prison. We will not break the seal. The voice wasn't warning humans. It was talking to other aliens. Others who may have come to Earth in the past. And the seal, it was Earth. The entire planet. Anna couldn't understand how something so big, so dangerous, could be locked away without humans knowing. But then she remembered what her grandmother wrote long ago. It doesn't live beneath us. It lives with us. Maybe the seal wasn't under the ground. Maybe it was inside reality itself. Then Anna found something else. She received an email. From an unknown sender. No name, no text, just a single attachment. A scan of a document, handwritten, on government letterhead. It was labeled Project Obelisk. Final entry. The note was written by a scientist named Dr. Elijah Harrow, a name Anna had come across once before in a censored NASA report. He had gone missing in 2007. The note read, "The object in Antarctica is not the only one. We found 6 more across the globe, hidden under mountains, in deserts, in the deep sea. All identical, all humming. One of them is open. The seal has broken. We don't know how long it's been open. We don't know how much has already escaped. All we know is that the sky has been silent ever since." Anna stared at the words. She knew this was real. She could feel it in her gut. The gates were not just one, they were many. A global network of prisons built long before human history began, and now. One of them was open. She dug deeper into geological surveys, unexplained disasters, missing research teams. In 2004, a deep-sea team exploring the Mariana Trench had found a strange structure more than 11,000 meters below the surface. They sent a probe inside a tunnel-like hole in the seabed. The probe stopped transmitting after 20 minutes. The last image it sent showed a massive black door covered in carvings. The report was never made public. In 2019, a cave collapsed in the Himalayas revealed a stone tablet etched with alien symbols. Monks living nearby said the mountain had begun whispering. Some of them disappeared. The cave was sealed by military teams within a week. Again, no official report. Anna realized that these weren't just signs, they were cracks in the seal. Something was leaking out. Not a creature, not a monster, but a presence, a force. Something that could watch, think, and wait. And now, it wasn't waiting anymore. Anna remembered what the Katalvora had said. We do not approach. You are not alone. It's the most terrifying line of all. This world is their prison. We will not break the seal. She looked again at the video from Antarctica, the one with the humming chamber and the chains on the stone door. The moment before the camera cut out, she saw something she hadn't noticed before. One of the chains was broken, not rusted, not old broken. Someone or something had come out. She began looking into classified military communications. A friend of hers working in cybersecurity helped her access files buried deep in encrypted servers. Most were nothing. But then, she found a voice message. Dated just 2 weeks before the loss of the moon. Mission in 2014. It was a direct call from a ground operator to an unnamed general. The operator's voice was shaking. Sir, there. Seeing things again, the astronauts, they're reporting shadows. In the corners of the cabin, equipment's malfunctioning. And sir, this is the 3rd mission this month. They say it's not out there anymore. They say it's here. The general's reply was cold. Lock the channel. Terminate feed. Prepare fallback protocols. Anna's heart sank. They knew they had known for years. She now understood why the Katalvora had never helped. It's not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't. The thing living on Earth, or sealed beneath it, or spread across. It was something ancient, something the oldest civilization in the galaxy dared not face, so they stayed away. But now Anna had a choice. She could hide, pretend none of it was real, or she could do what her grandmother had tried to do, warn. The world, she wrote everything she knew into a long document, every piece of truth. Every connection, every strange discovery. She called it the 7th Gate, Earth's hidden prison. Then she published it online. It went viral in hours. Some people laughed. Some called it a brilliant piece of science fiction. Others said it was a hoax. But deep in the corners of the internet, secure forums in hidden researcher circles on his work was taken very seriously. Messages began flooding her inbox. I've seen the carvings in Brazil. They match yours. My father was on the 2010 Mars probe team. He said the air felt alive. We think there's another gate under Mount Erebus. The volcano keeps humming. Then came the final message. An email. No subject. No name. Just one sentence. You were never meant to know. Now it knows you. That night, Anna didn't sleep. She sat in silence, surrounded by printed papers, glowing screens, and the low, pulsing hum that had become too familiar. It wasn't in her head anymore. The sound was coming from everywhere. It's the air, the walls, the ground. She walked outside. The sky was full of stars. But something felt wrong. A gap in the stars, a place where the light refused to shine. A hole, a shadow. Then, for the first time, she heard it clearly. A voice, not loud, not harsh, but close right beside her. The seal is broken. The watcher is free. Anna didn't scream. She didn't run. She just looked up at the stars and whispered the words her grandmother had once written in her final journal. They were not warning us about them. They were. Warning us about ourselves and something deeper than we can imagine. Because Earth was never alone, and maybe neither were we.